Hello, friends. Welcome in live here on the Sports Cubicle, Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. You can also check me out over at the Bear Era podcast over at the Blue Wire Podcast Network alongside with my co-hosts, EJ Snyder and Kieran Hall. And there has been a lot of Bears news, a lot of Bears vibes, a lot of Bears thoughts that have been in the universe. And I thought it was time we came in live and we talked to you, our awesome community, the awesome friends that we've made along the way in this journey as Bears fans, as a Bears community. And it's going to be a fun one. A lot of stuff to get into. So before we really kick things off, let's do a quick check to make sure. It's going to be a fun one. Yeah, looks like we're good to go. And all right, so here's what's on the agenda. First off, please like, rate, review, share us, subscribe to us. If you're here on YouTube here at the Sports Cubicle, please leave a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. We'll be looking at questions, comments as the show goes on. At the end of the show, your thoughts. And of course, subscribe to us. It helps out so much. And if you want to hear the audio version of all this, check us out wherever you get your favorite podcasts at Sports from the Couch. Also, check us out at Bear Era if you even want more Bears conversation with some of the best guests in the nation that are covering and digesting and dissecting the sport over at Bear Era podcast over on YouTube and on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Myself, EJ Snyder, and Kieran Hall. It is a great time. So why don't we get into it? There's a few things that I wanted to kind of hit on. And that was obviously the hiring of Ben Johnson has kind of been, rightfully so, the main focal point of Bears Kingdom, of Bears conversation. And we're going to get into the Ben Johnson side in just a little bit. But what I found really interesting, talking as the weeks have gone on now since the hire, since we saw what happened to Detroit after the NFC divisional round and how fast the Bears jumped on Ben Johnson, got him into Hallisall, didn't even get him to Hallisall, got him on Zoom and got a deal done. So people started talking, and there's, whether it's been reported or through back channels, it is interesting how the Ben Johnson hire has really changed the perception of the Chicago Bears. Not just here in Chicago, because I think rightfully so, if you're a fan of the Bears or fan of any team, there's always highs and lows of an offseason, of a regular season, of a postseason, right? When you're saying goodbye to the team, whether it was a good season or a bad season, you're depressed or you're melancholy or you're sad. And then you get into the offseason where you make a hire here or there, or you sign a player here or there. It was a good draft. You're at this euphoric high. And really, that's kind of the best part of fandom. But if you're a Bears fan, you live through a lot of that, because so many times we've seen the Chicago Bears win the offseason and that not correlate to anything in the regular season. This time around, with Ben Johnson being the hire, it wasn't just that you got the hotshot commodity offensive coordinator with the sexy offense and something everybody has wanted while you're competing with the Las Vegas Raiders and Tom Brady, because that's who they want. That's the man they want. It's more than just you got the hot thing. You have people around the league that have normally looked at the Chicago Bears with a side eye, not necessarily with malicious intent, but almost as a bless your soul, bless your heart type of way. And then this hire happened. So on Bear Era, earlier on last week, we went live. It was EJ and Kieran were live on camera, and I was on the chat talking to each and every one of you, and it was an awesome time. And one of the first things EJ brought out was some of the things that were being said, not by players, but by people that are the shakers and movers in the NFL. So this is EJ Snyder over on our other show, Bear Era, speaking about agents, and more specifically Rick Smith and his thoughts on the Chicago Bears. So why don't we listen to this? I think this is very interesting.
Good friend Bill Zimmerman did an interview with Rick Smith, who's Ben Johnson's agent. And one of the things Rick Smith said in that interview was, the Bears have changed. And I think that's really important. It's an important turning point that a lot of Bears fans might not mark as such. But for an agent, agents haven't necessarily the wide array of agents haven't necessarily had the best experience with the Bears. Certain agents have, of course. But for him to come out and say, this is a changed organization, and I give Kevin Warren credit for that. He made that link very directly. They are different, and it is because of Kevin Warren, which is what I think a lot of us were hoping for when Kevin Warren's position was created, when he was hired for it. And to have an agent come out and say that, and again, to have it be the agent of the hottest coaching prospect in the last couple of years, not just this year, who very solidly came into this negotiation and said, we want this job, which is a very different footing to enter a negotiation with the Bears on. And, you know, in terms of all the Raiders smoke, it became very clear that, as often happens in these things, the coach and his agent ended up using the Raiders to leverage the Bears, not the other way around. And of course, us all being Bears fans and having been through the wars of previous coaching hires, we're like, oh, he's just, you know, using the Bears to jack up the Raiders price. And it was the other way around, which is kind of a stunning turn of events for folks that don't follow those goings on in the league. But the end result is Ben Johnson is the coach of the Bears, as weird as it is to say that, as awesome as it is to say that.
So EJ said something there specific, and check out the entire episode over on our YouTube channel over at Bear Era Pod. EJ brought up something that really caught my attention, right? Was that the Bears got their man, that things have changed, that Kevin Warren was a spearhead of this. Over the last year and a half, it's been this weird conversation with Kevin Warren specifically, because of everything that's going on with the stadium that we'll be talking about at the end of this episode, whether or not they'll be playing here in Chicago, Arlington Heights, or if they're heading to Indiana. But that's the thing, right? Every time we've mentioned Kevin Warren, it's been about messiness of the stadium, of New Soldier Field, of the relocation. And in that being said, it's correctly being thought that way for Bears fans. What we haven't seen was what was Kevin Warren doing in guiding Ryan Poles, in telling Ryan Poles what he wanted, what they were going to do. What amount of leash was he allowing the general manager? You saw that Kevin Warren, and I believe this, wanted his man. Did not want to be embarrassed. Did not want to be the joke of the NFL. Say what you will about Kevin Warren. He is a proud man. And he is somebody that's always looking for the next position, right? You don't go from being the commissioner of the Big Ten to the head guy, the president of the Chicago Bears, not thinking that you could go a step or two higher. What can that be? I don't know, maybe commissioner. Think about that. Like, there is an ultimate goal for Kevin Warren to keep on moving. So having him be the spearhead of that is one thing that answers a lot of questions for us Bears fans. How involved he's going to be with the roster is going to be something that I think we'll learn as time goes on. But to me, it seems like Kevin Warren is the type of guy who delegates, who is in there for the big time meetings, has his hand in the operation, knows what's going on, but also knows who he hired, believes in the guys he truly believes in. And for Ryan Poles, having somebody in there with such aura, if you will, somebody who commands the room, is good for him as he can continue to grow in the position. Still a first-time general manager. This is still a first-time head coach. But it doesn't change that Kevin Warren was the difference maker. EJ said it in that specific clip. Normally the Bears are the bridesmaid, are the ones that are the runner-up, are the kid that gets picked last. They are usually used as the leverage team for the other organization to get their guy because they were going to spend a little bit more to guarantee it. That's who the Bears normally are. This time around, they beat out a legacy franchise in a sexy city with a brand new stadium and Tom Brady at the helm. Ben Johnson said no to that. Ben Johnson's agent said no to that. That means something. Does that equate to wins? No. Does that equal Super Bowls? Absolutely not. Does it change how things have normally been seen and done here in Chicago and how things are viewed around the NFL by this organization? Yeah. All these things can be true at one time. And I think we, as Bears viewers, as fans, are going to have to get used to the Bears being more competent, being involved. And doesn't mean they're going to get it all right. More often than not, they're going to get it wrong. That's the NFL. If you're watching this, especially at this time of day, you are a diehard fan or you're a friend of mine. But you know that the NFL can go either way. But the Chicago Bears weren't reaching for Ben Johnson. And the Chicago Bears didn't fall flat on their face. They got the guy everybody wanted. They paid the amount they wanted to. And now, because they made that decision, the perception by front offices, by agents, and by players has changed. Again, what do you do with that? How do you do your evaluations, your scouting with that advantage? Falls on Ryan Poles and the staff that he has. Now, one thing I do seem to kind of be putting it's not puzzle pieces, but when you just kind of look around, it's obvious news just when you watch on your Twitter thread or if you're following the team on their website, you can have as many coaches as you want. There's no cap. There's no limit. You can have 25 coaches on your roster, on your coaching staff. And it looks like the Bears are hiring people that they trust, that they believe are going to help develop young players, put a scheme around veterans to utilize their talents, to surround Caleb Williams to allow him to grow. And you're seeing it by hires of Eric Bieniemy, Antoine Randall. You're looking at Eric Allen. You're looking at, obviously, Dennis Allen. That is the big one right there. And there's a few other coaches that we'll get into over the next few weeks and more specifically over the next few months as the coaching staff continues to be put together. But I do want to kind of put I kind of want to put an ending to this, but more of we'll talk about it later. So here's it. This is EJ and Kieran over on Bear Era talking about their reaction to Ben Johnson. And the reason I kind of want to put this as an explanation or a period to this conversation of how agents are looking at the Chicago Bears, what Kevin Warren means being one of the spearheads of getting Ben Johnson. EJ and Kieran are obviously two smart football heads. What EJ has done with bootleg football, what he's going to the Shrine Game, when he's going to the Combine, the connections he has with players and agents, the man knows ball. The man knows ball. And Kieran Hall, what he's doing with the Irish Bears Network, the Irish Bears Show, he is somebody that is in the weaves with beat reporters and pundits. These two know ball. I want you to hear what they said when they heard Ben Johnson was actually hired by the Chicago Bears, that the Bears beat out Tom Brady and the Las Vegas Raiders.
The one thing that could give me the most possible hope about this franchise moving forward, in many terms, in terms of them being functional on offense, in terms of Caleb's futures being maximized, all those things really hinged on Ben Johnson. And there were various versions with lesser impact throughout, other folks in the coaching search, but there was nobody like Ben. Ben was the clear leader. And I really didn't think that Chicago would end up with him for multiple reasons. There's lots of smoke. Then they did. And I just kind of sat there and went, oh, so when we started this whole thing and we said it's a new era, and then we suffered through last season, we weren't wrong. We were just early.
It's good to be early. So it was, that week was a very interesting one for me, because I just remember kind of taking in all the information that was coming from various different sources. There was some people that were more confident on the Ben Johnson and the Bears links. Others were kind of very adamant in terms of, it doesn't look like this is happening. I remember doing different shows, different videos of, you'd have one person saying one thing, another person saying another. And I was like, there was the emotional side of my brain and the logical side of my brain that was fighting with each other that week. The emotional side was like, oh, God damn it, he's a Raider. And then the logical side is like, that doesn't make sense. Like, the teams that he has rejected in the past, I'm like, that doesn't make sense that he goes there. And I do remember it vividly. It was the Sunday. And I said this before, that I remember going for a walk with my son, and I just thought of it at the end. I'm like, I have a sneaky feeling that maybe they will actually change and maybe they will get this done. And then when it happened, I think I arrived home from work for about like 15 minutes, was in the middle of like cooking dinner, and then all the notifications happened, and I don't know what dinner turned out to be like because I was so distracted.
Again, check out the entire episode over at Bear Arrow. Is our latest live one. And whenever we go live, make sure you check us out. EJ and Kieran do some awesome stuff on the mic. I am in the chat as we go and talk to our awesome community. And it's a great time over at Bear Arrow Podcast. And you're here over on the Sports Cubicle, Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Make sure you like, subscribe us, and share us here on the YouTube channel at the Sports Cubicle. Leave a comment down below. We'll be taking questions and comments at the very end. And I wanted to hit a little bit on the Ben Johnson hiring aftermath, the ramifications, and who is now heading to Chicago. And I think starting off with Dennis Allen, and we'll circle back to Dennis Allen, but Dennis Allen being the defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears is beyond legitimizing. It's hopeful. It brings hopefulness to Bears fans. There is so much good that can happen with Dennis Allen being on this coaching staff and taking care of that defense. But we'll get to that and more in just a little bit. How about Antoine Randall coming from the Detroit Lions alongside Ben Johnson? We'll take an entire look over at this article. This comes to us from Bears hiring Antoine Randall and JT Barrett from Lions to join coaching staff. New Bears head coach Ben Johnson bringing over at least 2 Lions assistants with him to help run the offense. The Bears are finalizing a deal to hire Lions wide receivers coach Antoine Randall, a Thornton High School graduate who played 9 seasons in the NFL for the Steelers and Washington before becoming a coach to be the Bears' new assistant head coach and wide receivers coach on Johnson's staff, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Also expected to join the Bears from the Lions is their assistant quarterbacks coach, J.T. Barrett, who will become the Bears quarterback coach, according to the Chicago Tribune's Brad Biggs. The Bears are also expected to hire Cowboys assistant head coach and defensive backs coach, Al Harris, to be their defensive passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach. According to Schefter, Harris played 14 years in the NFL, 7 of them with division rival Packers, where he made 2 Pro Bowls. And you saw me stumble over Al Harris and Dennis Allen's names together, but that is a matchup made in heaven. What you're seeing on the Bears coaching staff is a lot of names that are either established coordinators or coaching fixtures in the NFL and up-and-coming prospects that are really hot in the coaching candidate circles. We have heard Antoine Randall's names plenty of times over the last few years. We've heard a lot of Al Harris. Obviously, Ben Johnson has been the heir apparent for a long time coming. And then Dennis Allen coming to Chicago. I have a clip here from Kieran from the latest Bear Era podcast that really puts it all together. But the most important thing, and Kieran brings it up, but it's something that I think anybody who has watched the Kansas City Chiefs, beyond the obvious Spags is a great defensive coordinator and Andy Reid running the offense, there is something about having a defensive coordinator when you have the hotshot offensive coordinator that is now the head coach of your team for the first time being a head coach. Having somebody like Dennis Allen who's seen it all, who has literally seen the greatest players, has been on the worst teams, has called some of the greatest games, has had some huge defeats. He has seen it all, and he is right there to be the right-hand man alongside Ben Johnson. And you don't worry about him being plucked to be a head coach somewhere. He's already had a couple opportunities that haven't worked out for him. And that's unfortunate for him in his head coaching, maybe aspirations. But as a Bears fan and for this organization, it is now your reward. It is now something you have that you can take advantage of. It is now in your toolbox. So let's listen to Kieran on Dennis Allen, then we'll talk a little bit more about this coaching staff.
I would be remiss without doing kind of what I said at the start of this whole process, that if you do get that young offensive guy, the defensive coordinator has to be probably the perfect hire. And Ben Johnson, with that in mind, tick. I like it. Dennis Allen it's the type of defensive coordinator I like, because he's aggressive and he wants to win, and he's not happy to settle when the defense is on the field. And it's something that I really like. There's a couple of parts of this that I was very positive with. He's probably not leaving you to be a head coach somewhere, which is great. So that is a good one, that he's been a head coach twice. It's very unlikely that he'll get to be one a third time around. He is a much better defensive coordinator than he is a head coach, but also it is important that he was a head coach, because you have a first-time head coach, and sometimes it's when guys make mistakes as the head guy, they have to kind of self-evaluate and be like, this is what needs to be done. These are the different steps. This is how much it's going to pull you away from doing what you want to do on the offensive side of the football. And I think that was really important. I kind of linked it back to when Sean McVay took over for the LA Rams, and it's changed since, but those first 2 years, for when he first started with Wade Phillips, he was basically, take care of the defense and I'll focus over here on the offense. And you can do that in terms of, you can trust Dennis Allen to take care of that defense, and you can feel pretty good about it. It's very similar, I think, to the first season when Matt Nagy was with the Bears, that he could basically rely on Vic Fangio to do whatever with the defense. And that's what I like about Dennis Allen, that you can trust him. You can trust what he's kind of bringing to the table in terms of the success. Like you can look at the numbers, you can look at the statistical analysis of his defenses, and they're, for the past couple of seasons, they've always been very highly ranked in some of the most important categories. But the key thing that I like about it is, the one thing that infuriated me with the Eberflus defense, and I know it's kind of stems from what we saw in Lovie Smith, the whole bend but don't break. But at the end of games, like, I'd much rather lose a game because my defensive coordinator is being aggressive and guys are trying to make plays, versus guys stepping off and allowing a team to beat you. And that's what I like. You're going to see more of the kind of like Spags type thing with the Chiefs, where he's going to come up with something to try and win you a game, rather than being like, "Ooh, I'm afraid I don't want to lose this game."
And when you have that type of mentality, that you are going to make sure that you leave it all on the field, that no stone is unturned, and that you're trying to win the game. That's the key to that statement when you have a coach like Dennis Allen, because there are going to be moments Ben Johnson is over his head. It's just going to happen. There's going to be a game where it gets out of control, or something happens that he's never seen before in that position of leadership. And Dennis Allen, being that rock that has done all the stuff that he's going to do. Again, everybody makes mistakes. They're all human. But if he plays the average game, if he calls the average game, if the defenses that he has is the one that shows up for Chicago, he's going to be there to allow them to win a game. He's going to call a play that helps turn the field, that gives them a chance for a field goal, that brings it to the house, a turnover that is actually a touchdown. Who would have thunk it, right? Something huge. But having that on this Bears team, on this coaching staff, that is a sign of optimism. If you're looking for it as a Bears fan, your North Star, you found it, is that the coach, the hotshot coach that was brought in, has surrounded himself with smart people, with people that are great at the job that they do, that are connected to players in a way that they're trusted. That when you hear about these coaches from other teams, from beat reporters or former players, nothing but great words. And if you think about Shane Waldron last season, when Jackson Smith-Njigba was on a podcast and he found out that Shane Waldron was the new OC for Chicago and Caleb hadn't been drafted yet, you heard it in his voice. He gave a sarcastic answer. He said that Shane Waldron was trash. You haven't heard that about Ben Johnson. You haven't heard that about Dennis Allen. You haven't heard that about Eric Bieniemy, who, by the way, Eric Bieniemy now leaving UCLA to be on the running backs coach for the Chicago Bears. Obviously a huge thing in Chicago, especially for Ben Johnson's offense. But Eric Bieniemy is also going to put a little fire under the ass of this Bears team. See, one of the things that, and it's in circles around the NFL community, that Eric Bieniemy is a little bit rough around the edges with players. Not necessarily the most cuddly of coaches for these players in the NFL. But you need that sometimes in the NFL, specifically anywhere. You need somebody who sometimes is going to say it how it is, try to keep people in line, try to keep everybody's mission statement the same. Because there are a lot of ways seasons get derailed. As Bears fans, any fan in the NFL, you've seen it happen to so many different organizations. But bringing in Eric Bieniemy, who didn't become a head coach, has had some success, has not had some success, there's just been a lot of weirdness from leaving Kansas City, going to Washington, UCLA, to come here with kind of the mixture that has been put together, might be that little bit of salt, a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of spice that you need in the meal that they're making. And I appreciate that. And I think a lot of Bears fans do too. Again, does that equate to wins? Does that make you a Super Bowl contender? No. But if you're going to a restaurant where they have the line cook and the main cook and the dessert tray and the bar all kind of in sync, and all the people who are working there are really good at what they do, are competent at their job, you have a chance of having a decent meal. Just as a base, you have a chance for a decent meal. So I think if you're looking for a football team, at your football team, that is a wonderful start for the Chicago Bears team, is how they put this coaching staff together. From Ben Johnson to Dennis Allen to having guys like Barrett and Antoine Randall, where he could just tell them, guys, you know what we like, you know what we do, teach them. Think about that for a second. That is also a big part of this, that a lot of the coaches are plug and play. You're allowing yourself, if you're Ben Johnson, to ease yourself into your new role. You're allowing yourself the grace of, I don't know everything, but I have people in here that are going to help me and put my players that I put in their hands in the best position to win. And whether it's the NFL, Fortune 500 company, or a mom and pop shop, that's all you can ask for, is we put in a position where you can excel and where you can get the best out of you. That management will get the best out of you, will get their return in investment, and everybody comes out winning. That's what competent, top-tier organizations and franchises do. And by making these type of moves, you've allowed yourself onto that road. There's still so much work that needs to be done now on the roster. But you have adults in charge now. And for Bears fans, that's all you can ask for. And we are here live on YouTube, here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. You can also check us out over at the Bear Era Podcast on YouTube at Bear Era Pod, or at the Blue Wire Podcast Network. It's myself, EJ Snyder, and Kieran Hall, talking to some of the best national broadcasters, beat reporters, and insiders around the NFL. That's the Bear Era Podcast. You can also check us out here in Chicago on the radio, Sunday nights on WSBC 1240 AM and WCPT 820 AM. Here in Chicago, it's the Sports Cubicle with myself, Mike Mercado, Paul Chivari, Devin Tingle, and the marvelous one, Dan Marver. Let's take a little H2O break. These from my enemies as I win my championship. Yeah, you can also buy the book. See, right there. Yes, this is the last time. Our studio office will now be becoming the baby's room, and the work is being done. So this is the last live video. You can see how it's already going. Yeah, this is the last time. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun as we. I wanted to do one last live stream here in front of this old setup as Yeah, the baby's coming. It's going to be a good time. So, speaking of good times, speaking of arrivals, there's one arrival that a lot of Bears fans have been anticipating, that have been really pursuing and are betting on is going to be a thing. And that, of course, is one of the best in the industry from the Kansas City Chiefs. It is Chiefs guard Trey Smith. Now, this is from Adam Schefter earlier on today. Tag time. Starting today through Tuesday, March 4th, teams can designate franchise or transition players. It is expected to be a quiet tag cycle with minimal tag options. Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins, Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold, or cornerback Byron Murphy Jr. Interesting to see what happens with Sam Darnold and these rumors about Aaron Rodgers coming to Chicago. You know what? I'm going to make a note on that right now. We'll talk about that in a little while. And Chiefs guard Trey Smith, which then retweeted by Josh Norris, who is the director of content and fantasy lead over at Underdog Fantasy. He retweeted, hadn't considered a Trey Smith franchise tag. That value would equal $25.15 million since all offensive linemen are grouped together. That would make him the highest paid guard in football by $4 million in average year. Robert Hunt received $20 million per year on the open market last year, which then Adam Schefter replied with, agreed. Hard to imagine the Chiefs franchise tag Trey Smith. A transition tag is more palatable and plausible, which, you know, has a lot of people thinking that that's it. That means more than ever, I think the Chicago Bears are in on Trey Smith. Because how much are the Kansas City Chiefs willing to invest in Trey Smith alone when they know they have so much work to do around that offensive line? There's a lot of work to do for Kansas City. Let's do that for a second. Let's take a look at what should Kansas City be doing in this situation. After watching the Super Bowl, I think we all can, I don't know if we all necessarily agree on this, but I think the Chiefs, while having like Xavier Worthy, for instance, right, or Isaiah Pacheco, Patrick Mahomes could use more help. Travis Kelce is only going to get so much better. He's only going to be so much of a unicorn as he is now, right? Like, you know, that's going to deteriorate. What are you going to get from DeAndre Hopkins moving forward? So if you're the Chiefs and you know you have so much money, are you willing to invest in that on Trey Smith alone? Now, you can ask the question, why would the Bears do it? They have so much offensive line work that they need to do. It is more valuable and a more needed asset for the Bears to get a premium offensive lineman for a team that already has a lot of offensive weapons that a lot of people around the league like. So to them, the money is the juice is worth the squeeze if you're the Chicago Bears when it comes to the financial investment. Ben Devine also retweeted this after Adam Schefter had mentioned the transition tag being a plausible and possible situation. It's looking more likely that the Chiefs' right guard, Trey Smith, will avoid the franchise tag. A transition tag will likely mean he's leaving the Chiefs if he gets the kind of contract he's looking for. So you're at the point now where it's only money. As Bears fans, as consumers of Chicago Bears football, we have seen the Bears invest a lot of draft capital to get either projects that the front office likes or players' talent that believe will put them over the edge or that are worth said draft capital. This is a move where all you are giving up is money and years. Now, it's obviously valuable in the NFL because it's a cap sport. But you know what the mission statement is for this offseason. Bolster the offensive and defensive line. You got one of the top-tier offensive coordinators in the NFL, arguably the best offensive coordinator in the NFL, and the hottest hot coach commodity to your team. You brought him in. He's one of the main guys in your franchise now. What made the team that he was the OC of so good. They had a great offensive line that allowed them to do fun, trickery, interesting schemes that allowed them to utilize 2 running backs, hell, sometimes 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a solid tight end. That was the foundation in which the Lions were built. That is the foundation in which the Eagles beat the hell out of the Chiefs with. Offensive line and defensive line. It is no secret that is what's won in the NFL. When I was a wee lad, dumb little tadpole in this podcast, sports, radio industry, one of the first things that I came up with when I was doing the Chicago beat, for God's sakes, the most important position in the NFL is the quarterback. The second most important position in the NFL is the guy that attacks the quarterback. The third most is the guy that stops the guy that's trying to kill your quarterback. That's it. That's the triangle. You can have great wide receivers. You can have great running backs. You have great corners. What happens in the trenches and when that ball is in the quarterback's hand determines the entire game. And the Bears have an opportunity right now to only have to give up money in years to bolster their offensive line. Because things don't get cheaper. The more the years go on, the more people age, and more specifically, you get to that year where you got to worry about Caleb Williams and that contract. That's what's in play right now. That's what's in play for Trey Smith. Do I think it's a guarantee that they land him? No, because somebody like that, Trey Smith at 26, 27, top tier guard. You know, funny how people are trying to kind of rain on the parade and you know, throw dirt on his grave because of the performance in the Super Bowl, as if anybody played well from the Kansas City Chiefs. They were steamrolled. Nobody was playing well for that team. But even then, he did his job as much as he could. But like, that performance does not stop from how great of an offensive lineman he is. And what having him and Darnell Wright together can mean if you draft a tackle here and you bring in a center. You know, all of a sudden having Darnell Wright and someone like Trey Smith, and if you bring in, you know, those type of moves make your center and that need less and less. For example, when the sum of all pieces are greater than just the one, the whole unit will be better. So obviously the reason why there was so much attention in the center position over the last few years is not only has it not been all that great, there hasn't been great play by Bears centers. The offensive line around that player, the 4 other guys, have not done their job to help protect them, to help keep them in a certain position. It's hard to play center in the NFL. The guys are undersized as it is. So not getting help from your other big guys, that'll do it. That'll put you in a really tough spot. But that is the most recent news about Trey Smith. We'll see how that plays out for Chicago. I think they do land him. I think they're going to go all out on him. You think they were tampering with DeAndre Swift? Wait until this is able to happen and the Bears are able to get their man. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do the Bears land Trey Smith? Is he going to be the new guard for the Chicago Bears? Before we go into this story about Indiana and the Chicago Bears stadium, there have been talks, and it was Courtney Cronin, I believe, ESPN, who mentioned Aaron Rodgers possibly being the backup of the Chicago Bears. And I guess, you know, since we're here right now and it's just us friends talking, why don't we just look it up, see if we get the exact quotes, because I think that would be an interesting. Aaron Rodgers going to back up. I believe it was. Let's see. Let's see if we could find a decent article for you guys. Give me 1 second, okay? Because what will be interesting about this is, let me see right here. All right, let's see. Yeah, so it was Courtney Cronin saying whether Aaron Rodgers would be able to be the backup of Aaron Rodgers would be the backup of Caleb Williams. All right. Aaron Rodgers, without a shadow of a doubt, even all the, I'm sorry for it, just cringe that we get from him, he is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League. He is one of the greatest people, humans, organisms to ever throw a football in the universe, in the known galaxy, right? There are your flowers. He is not needed as a backup to the Chicago Bears. There is nothing in which Aaron Rodgers does that doesn't equal something for Aaron Rodgers' benefit. There's nothing that he does that isn't for engagement farming, brand building, or just to stir the pot. Whether or not you agree with all the things he says, you think he's a nut job, you're right in the middle, or you just want to see him throw the ball. It doesn't benefit Caleb Williams to have somebody who still believes they can not only play in the NFL, win in the NFL, be an MVP in the NFL, win Super Bowls in the NFL. That's what Aaron Rodgers believes he can do. Can he? I mean, we've seen Tom Brady do it. If anybody else is going to be able to do it, but you've seen what you've seen. Your eyes haven't lied to you. Don't let other things deceive what you've seen and heard. The Bears organization is in a good spot, heading in the right direction. They're going to get rid of players on this roster that weren't always paying attention, weren't always the best in the locker room, didn't bring the best vibes. And you're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers to back up Caleb Williams? Just in the sake of mess that you'll have on social media and the news cycle and with the beat reporters, which, by the way, the Chicago Bears have the best beat reporters in all of NFL. That's what you want to bring into your locker room? That's what you want to bring in for your first-time head coach? No. Now, are there teams out there that would benefit having Aaron Rodgers there right now? Yeah, absolutely. Cleveland Browns, for example, if they draft Cam Ward, the Tennessee Titans, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New Orleans Saints, there are teams that can use Aaron Rodgers right now to either be the gap, make a crazy historic run, or be somebody that's going to be that young development first time, the real true rookie, right? Somebody who doesn't have to worry about their job being taken, but is also a rookie. You know, if a Bryce Young season has, okay, we'll put you, come relax, come watch and learn on the bench, pick up a clipboard, Aaron, get back out there. That's not where the Bears are. If Caleb Williams isn't playing for the Chicago Bears at any point this season, it's a disaster. And if he's not playing multiple games, set the alarms. Because it is apocalyptic time. Speaking of apocalyptic time, let's get to this story really fast before we head on out of here. This is something that every Bears fan is sick and tired of hearing about. And it is about stadium location. Whether it's Michael Reese, whether it's Lakefront, whether it's Arlington Heights, whether it's Naperville, and now at this point, if it's Northwest Indiana. This comes to us from Maya Wilkins over at the Chicago Tribune, Post-Tribune. This has been updated since February 18th, 2025, earlier on in the morning. A bill aimed at attracting the Chicago Bears to Northwest Indiana is one step closer to passing on to the Senate after the Indiana House approved its second reading Monday. The House will hear House Bill 1292 in its third reading at a later date. House Bill 1292, authored by Rep. Earl Harris, Democrat in East Chicago, would establish a Northwest Indiana Professional Development Commission and Professional Sports Development Fund. And again, you hear those words, right? Development, commission, fund. It's something that we've been talking about here when it comes to the Chicago Bears and their new stadium here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. And we are taking a look at this story as the Chicago Bears are continuing their search of a new location for their brand new stadium. And we continue on here. The commission would study various plans and recommendations to attract a professional sports franchise to the region, according to the Indiana Journal Assembly website. The commission would also prepare a comprehensive master plan for building facilities and other infrastructure. If the bill is passed, the commission will be made up of 19 members, including mayors from East Chicago, Gary, Hammond, Michigan City, LaPorte, Portage, and South Bend. Remaining members would be appointed by people including the executive director of Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority, the governor, and leaders in Lake, Porter, LaPorte, and St. Joseph counties. Once established, the commission would be able to enter agreements or contracts or grants or appropriations from federal, state, and local governments, individuals, foundations, or other organizations, according to Post-Tribune archives. It would also be able to operate, own, manage, or lease property. The commission would spend money from the Professional Sports Development Fund, which would be funded through General Assembly appropriations, grants, gifts, and donations. The money from the fund can't be reverted to another fund. The Bears are looking for a new home, so Harris has previously said their main target for this bill. However, the commission would explore any professional football, baseball, basketball, hockey, or soccer team. Sox fans, keep an eye on this. On February 11th, the House Ways Means Committee amended the bill to remove language about not paying any state employee on the commission travel expenses and not state employee commissions the minimum salary per diem and reimbursement for travel outlined in state code, according to Post-Tribune archives. And yeah, that's about it. And then it goes on about the history of the bill, where it comes from. You can check out the rest of the article over at Post-Tribune on the Chicago Tribune by Maya Wilkins, as a bill now is trying to attract the Chicago Bears to Northwest Indiana. So, of course, what do you hear there when you are listening to that bill? Funding, infrastructure, building community, but while they own it all. The interesting thing about the Chicago Bears stadium is not a lot of teams in the NFL, it's only a select handful, actually own completely their team. On some level, there's other people that are invested in each stadium that's built in the NFL. But the amount of financial benefit it is to own your own stadium, to own the property in which that stadium is located on, is so massive. The average Joe, the average person working cannot comprehend the money, the numbers, those type of ownership assets bring to an individual, to a family, to a board. The Chicago Bears are going to own their own stadium. They're going to pick the best location, which allows the most commerce to come into town, into their stadium, and spend money. That's not Northwest Indiana. That's not where they're specifically asking to relocate. Does not have the infrastructure for not just any team, but the charter franchise of the most popular sport in the United States of America. Now, with a little bit of time and development and some guaranteed money and some tax breaks and the way taxes work in Indiana, yeah, maybe the White Sox are in play. You know, there's always been talk about Hammond and all these different places of the White Sox going, Indianapolis. Somewhere like there, Northwest Indiana, across the border, Gary, yeah, it's in play. But the Chicago Bears are looking for A1 prime time location. The only reason Arlington Heights is still in play is because they own the land already. All the Bears need to do is sign on the dotted line and put shovels to the ground. That is the only thing keeping Chicago from building a new stadium in Arlington Heights, the northwest suburbs of Chicago. That's it. Everything else comes with needing tax breaks, needing money from the citizens, needing permission from different organizations around the city of Chicago, having to adhere to laws and historical venues. The Bears once again have complicated things for themselves in the eyes of the fan and people outside of these meetings. I think the Bears have probably In my opinion, George and the entire McCaskey family overreacted, acted really fast when they bought the land from Arlington Heights. Kevin Warren has come in and has looked around and said, I would not have done that at least as fast as you did or the type of deal you made. So now that I'm here, this is what we're going to do. We're going to explore all these different options. And we are going to get the best deal we can, not for the taxpayers, not for the citizens, not for the county, not for the cities, not for the states, but for the Chicago Bears. And that is his job. It is a job of our elected officials to make sure we get the best deal for ourselves, that we aren't held responsible for the financial burden of these brand new stadiums, more specifically, this brand new Soldier Field. So saying all that, the road with less obstruction is Arlington Heights. The pipe dream is the lakefront. But the destination is Chicago, Chicagoland. The Bears will play around or in Chicago forever and ever. The only question is, how much money will citizens be responsible for another billion-dollar entity to have their own playground? But we'll go, we'll watch, and we'll enjoy. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this last live edition on these studios. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, look at here. For the baby. Book I wrote. Some of the characters. Tyson, Mowgli, Wifey, my brothers on the wedding day. And of course, the baby herself. Oh, you know what? While we have a chance here, you know what? I'll leave you guys with this. So here, this is what we'll do. As I'm going to do it right now, as we wrap things up. So what we're going to do is I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to do a companion piece to this. We're running into an hour. All comments, any questions, anything on social media. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. But make sure you guys like, subscribe, share us, leave a thumbs up here on the video, here on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. We'll be doing a companion video and podcast answering your questions, looking at some of your comments and thoughts on this episode before. If you want to see the podcast version, just search us at Sports from the Couch. And if you want more Bears content, check out Bear Era Podcast, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. It's myself, Mike Mercado, EJ Snyder from Bootleg Football, and Kieran Hall from the Irish Bears Network, the Irish Bears Show, as we talk to some of the best insiders, beat reporters, and national football talking heads around the globe on our show to give you the best information about the NFL and more specifically, the beloved Chicago Bears. That is the Bear Era Podcast. Check us out on YouTube at Bear Era Pod. Thank you guys so much. It means the world to us. If you're here in Chicago, you can listen to the show on WCPT 820 AM or WSBC 1240 AM Sunday nights here on Chicago Radio, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Thank you guys so much. What we're going to do is we're going to leave you a little treat. So the belt I finally won, the Fantasy Football Championship, Chicago Finest, a league full of sharks. I was finally able to win it. You may have known him if you've been part of the podcast journey I've been on. Middle brother, Alex Mercado, he won his championship last year. So he was holding on to this belt last year, and I was able to win it at this year's WrestleMania. And on Super Bowl Sunday, I decided to, what I believe was send a wonderful video, a ad that I saw. So enjoy this video, and I want to thank you all so much as it's loading right now again. It'll be a new look, some new vibes over the next few weeks, but it'll be a fun show because you guys will be a part of it. So thank you guys so much. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Please take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time. Enjoy this very cinematic, Martin Scorsese level, Quentin Tarantino level of dialogue of a Super Bowl spot, of a show, of a story that will be coming to a theater, to a screen near you. Thank you all so much. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. And hopefully we see you over at the Bear Era Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.
In the heart of a season filled with doubt and determination, a team no one believed in dared to dream. Through bitter defeats and impossible comebacks, they forged their identity, not just as players, but as warriors. A band of brothers united by one mission, to bring home the crown. For the first time in their history, they stand alone atop the mountain, champions not just of a game, but of an era. The Lucha Dog era. One team dared to rise above them all, led by the unstoppable Mike Mercado, a warrior with fire in his heart, a leader who fights not for fame, but for honor. And on one fateful night, under the lights of the biggest stage in the world, they defied the odds, they silenced the doubters, and they became world champions.